so I have a few errands to run in town today. I have to return some books to the library on knitting, surprise, surprise, and a few other things around town. And I'm gonna take my bike. Also, the weather is beautiful. It's about 11 degrees Celsius right now, which is, I wouldn't say unheard of, but it's been really nice these past few days. So I'm gonna take you with me part of the way. Here we go. Denmark is a very bicycle-friendly country, ranking second in the world only after Holland. In the capital of Copenhagen, as well as in Aarhus and Odense, the second and third largest cities respectively, there are miles and miles of bicycle paths. Especially during the warmer months, I try to take my bike to most places. For many Danes who live in the city, their bike is their main means of transportation. I want to tell you how I came to live in Odense, a city I had never set foot in before I moved here. But I also want to tell you just a little about Odense itself. So you can see that this is near the station, or you can't see that, but I'm telling you that it is. And this is what it looks like, close to any train station in Denmark. Lots and lots of bicycles. The only other place I've seen something similar is in Amsterdam, where of course there are even more bikes, but this is what people do. People take their bikes to the station and then they take the train to, well, for instance, Copenhagen. A lot of people commute to Copenhagen from here. If they take the fast train, they can get there in a little over an hour. There are currently about 180,000 people living here. When Hans Christian Andersen was born here in 1805, there were only 6,000 inhabitants, and yet at that time and up until the late 1800s, it was the second largest city in Denmark. There has been a settlement here for over 4,000 years, but the name Odense, or Odense, cropped up for the first time in 988 during the Viking Age, according to the sagas. It was supposedly where the Viking god Odin lived. A somewhat more dubious claim to fame is that the last Viking king, King Canute IV, was murdered here in 1086. In 1935, one of the tallest buildings in Europe was situated here, Odenstårnet, or Odin's Tower, but it was destroyed by the Nazis in World War II. There's also a university here where I studied French, which brings me to why I moved here in the first place. When I was 27 years old, I was still living in Aalborg in the northern part of Jutland, where I had studied English and international relations. I met my then boyfriend, who was studying Danish in Aarhus and who wanted to study sports science, which had just become a new and fast developing field of study at the university in Odense. I had recently returned from India and had gone through some tumultuous events in my own life, and so was in a time of transition. When he suggested we move in together and move to Odense, I felt it was as good a plan as any. I only had my thesis left to write, which I could do anywhere. We moved into an apartment I had never seen before, in a city I'd never been to before, some 250 kilometers away, which is a lot in a small country. I felt like a complete foreigner that first year. Hearing another dialect made me realize that Denmark isn't just Denmark. It was a relief to me when I finished my studies and got my first job as a teaching assistant at the university. A first step towards some kind of inclusion in my new town. 6 months later, there was an opening at the teaching college in Odense, an institution I knew nothing about. But my boyfriend sold it to me because both of his parents were teachers. I wasn't quite sure though. I felt out of my depth at the thought of teaching at a college of education, and I also still wanted to move back to Jutland. But I applied and got the job as a teacher of English as a foreign language to student teachers, and struggled my way through that first year, my second year in Odense. I also had my first child. Then gradually I began to feel I knew what I was doing, and one day there was an opening at another college of education, this one in Jutland. I leapt at the chance and got the job interview, which felt like a potential homecoming to me. I'm on my way to meet a new acquaintance. I met her a couple of months ago through a mutual friend, and we speak French together. You can see the cathedral in Odense behind me here. So anyway, I was talking to my friend Cindy. Cindy's English, and Cindy knows everybody in this town. She was actually a student of mine, but she is my age, so she was late being a student. And after she finished her studies, we kept in touch. And I was mentioning to her that I would really like to improve my French. And she said, well, I know just the person. And it's a Danish woman who lived in France for 20 years. And she's 2 years older than me, I think. And we've met a few times now. And of course, it's completely daunting to speak French suddenly. But that's what you got to do if you want to get better at it. I've met up with her 3 or 4 times now. And we speak French exclusively, which is really weird, but it's really good practice. Of course, I speak like a child. I have the vocabulary of an 8-year-old maybe in French, but that's inevitable. So let's go. Okay, wish me luck now. So I've just said goodbye to my French-Danish acquaintance. My brain is pounding now, having spoken French, well, kind of French, for 2 hours. And now it's really crowded. This is the park in the middle of the city that I live in. So many people are out and about because it's really nice weather. I hope you can hear me. The river, the stream is making quite a lot of noise. I think I'm gonna hop on my bike. I'm very pleased with having spoken French for 2 hours now. It was a lot of fun and also really hard. I'm constantly searching for words, which makes it also feel very weird to speak English now. It's about 3:45 right now, and the weather is absolutely lovely. It's still chilly, but we actually managed to sit outside for about an hour and a half. I have to say my hands are cold now and my feet a little, but we did it. Looky here. Look at this. This is a typical Danish thing, to have crocuses all over the lawns. I'm going to put on my bicycle helmet because I have to go out into the traffic now. I look kind of like something between a soldier and a construction worker in this, but it's safest this way. But it was while I was sitting at that interview, chatting away with people who had my kind of Danish dialect, that a tiny shift occurred within me. Something was off, though I couldn't quite tell what, because the interview seemed to be going swimmingly. I drove back to Odense and the island of Funen, and when I entered my apartment, I called up the college in Jutland and told them I withdrew my application. It was one of those small moments when a door opens and another closes, where it's as if a little bell goes off inside you, and suddenly you know something about yourself, or about your life, you didn't know moments before. I knew I wanted to give my new job and my new life in Odense a chance, and I knew I no longer wanted to move back to Jutland. It was something I hadn't planned at all, but which came to be defining. So yeah, the John Lennon quote has often been true for me. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. But also the somewhat lesser known quote by Eminem. The truth is, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Life is a crazy ride and nothing is guaranteed. One of the lessons, if I can call it that, to be gleaned from this is that it's only by trying things out that we can know what's really for us. By realizing what we don't want, or where we don't want to go, we come a step closer to finding out what we do want and where we do want to go. That kind of searching is perhaps especially important when we're younger, but to some extent it continues if we're willing to try out new things. So maybe you should ask yourself, is there anything new or old that you could be learning that would give you joy? It may be hard and you may not be very good at it to begin with, but you're doing it for you anyway, so celebrate every little step and just be happy practicing. I can still feel a bit like an outsider here sometimes, but that's okay. And I know I'm not the only one. One of my best friends here is from Jutland, so I was never the only one with my dialect, my particular cultural affinities. And apropos diverse cultural affinities, I want to say thank you for the comments I got on last week's video. I appreciate each and every one of them. And if you watched this far, I appreciate that too. So thank you, and hope to see you next time.